This happened a few weeks ago. I'm Francisco, 34, and I've struggled for years to keep my family's farm alive. I inherited land that used to be fruitful, but now it's a mess of dried-up soil and thorny weeds. I had to provide for my wife and young daughter, and let me tell you, doubt was creeping in like dusk over my fields. I've never stopped thinking about it. I was walking my fields that night. It was getting dark, but I wanted to check on the crops, though I already knew they were in bad shape. The silence was heavy. Every creak of the old wood in the shacks made me jump. I was tired. Maybe it was just the weight of the debts piling high, or maybe it was something else. Then I saw him, a Charro dressed in dark clothing. He showed up out of nowhere, leaning against a crumbling fence. I could hardly move as he looked at me. He offered to buy my grandmother's spirit in exchange for a fertile harvest. My stomach twisted. At first, I thought it was nonsense, and I don't even know why I didn't just laugh and walk away. But desperation had its grip on me. The next morning, something odd happened. The crops, which had been wilting, started to look better. I blinked hard, thinking I was just tired. But as days passed, they thrived. I wasn't sure if I should feel happy or scared. Then shadows began to appear late at night, slipping through the fields. Sometimes I heard whispers, familiar names. I recognized my grandmother's name. My heart raced. Each time I thought I heard her, something cold washed over me. I could feel my wife watching me. Her eyes were more worried every day. I began to change too. I was anxious and restless. I started dreaming of family gatherings filled with laughter, but woke with a heavy sadness. Maybe it was guilt? As the harvest approached, the weight of my choice bore down on me. It felt like I had made a deal for my family's fortune. But what if that Charro had truly taken something from me? Questions haunted me. What was happening on my land? What was the price of my desperation? Then that night came. I stood looking out at the fields under a moonlit sky, feeling a chill. I turned and froze. There, among the tall stalks, a figure stood, watching me. My heart pounded in my chest as I rushed forward. I couldn't tell who it was, but I knew something was wrong. "Who's there?" I shouted into the dark. Silence answered me. Just that silence, pressing in. I took a step closer, my eyes straining to see. The figure didn't move, just stayed there, darker than the shadows around it. Questions raced in my mind. Was it my grandmother? Was it the Charro? I didn't know. I felt trapped. I took another step and tried to summon my courage. But then I saw her, or what looked like her, a shape breaking through the tall stalks. My breath caught. Her eyes, wide and hollow, stared right at me. My heart sank. "Francisco," she whispered. The voice sent chills down my spine. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. All I could do was stand there, caught between fear and desperation. The wind picked up, rustling through the fields, and I heard it again. "Francisco," my grandmother's voice. But I remembered the Charro's offer. My heart was pounding in my chest. The darkness closed in around me, and I knew I had to decide. I stood frozen, my mind racing. There she was, or at least the form of her, sketched against the moonlight. The weight of her name lingered in the air. I blinked, hoping it was just my imagination, but her eyes remained, empty and searching. "Abuela?" I managed to choke out. My voice was hoarse, thick with disbelief. "Is that really you?" But the shadow continued to watch me, her lips moving slightly, as if trying to speak again. I took a step back, heart pounding harder. The memory of my grandmother, her warm hugs, her soft laughter, clashed with the vision in front of me. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. "Francisco," she whispered once more. But the sound twisted in the wind, barely carrying her voice. In that moment, doubt roared in my ears. Was this a warning, or was it a trick? I thought of the Charro, grinning darkly, the way he had promised me everything, a bountiful harvest, prosperity. But what was the cost? I turned to escape, but the figure moved. It was slow, deliberate, drawing closer. Something deep inside me screamed to run, but I forced myself to stay. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my voice breaking through the night. But my words seemed to dissipate in the oppressive darkness. The figure stabilized, fixing its gaze on me, and as I looked deeper into those hollowed eyes, I felt as if the very ground beneath my feet was trembling. Suddenly, she spoke again. "You have betrayed me, Francisco." Her voice was low but heavy, carrying the weight of countless years. I gripped my chest. "No, I had to save the farm," I protested, desperation spilling from my lips. "It was dying. We were dying." "It will consume you." The warning hung like fog around us. It felt real. She felt real. For a moment, the thorns cutting at my heart gathered into a bitter realization. "Leave me alone!" I shouted, voice tinged with both fear and resolve. I turned on my heel, running back towards the house. The fields blurred as the moon cast narrow shadows, twisting them into monstrous forms as I dashed through the crops. I stumbled and fell, hands scraping against the dirt. Struggling to get back up, I turned back for just a moment. The figure stood still, watching me. As shadows danced around her. When I reached the door of the farmhouse, my breath came in ragged gasps. I burst through, locking the door behind me. My wife was awake, sitting up in bed, eyes wide with worry. "Francisco, what's wrong?" She reached for me, her face a mask of concern. But I shook my head, fear stinging my thoughts. "There's something out there," I gasped. "I saw her! I saw Abuela!" Just then, the wind howled against the walls of our home, and I knew something was coming. "It's not over," I whispered to myself, gripping the edge of the table, suddenly aware of a new fear. What if she didn't stay out there? What if she was only getting started? The shadows outside shifted again, and the feeling of dread settled over me. That night had opened a door I couldn't close. Then, everything went dark. I woke up with a jolt. The room was swallowed by darkness, and my heart raced in my chest. I fumbled for the lamp, hands shaking, but a shadow flitted across the window before I could reach it. I froze, staring into the void outside, waiting for something, anything. "Francisco?" My wife's voice cut through the silence, thick with concern. "What happened? Are you okay?" I'm fine," I lied, my throat dry. But the fear felt heavy, and I couldn't shake the feeling that watching eyes lingered in the darkness. I turned towards her, finding comfort in her presence, but the memory of Abuela's warning swirled in my mind. "Are you sure? You look pale," she said, pulling the blanket closer around herself. "I saw her," I admitted, panic lacing each word. "I saw Abuela in the fields." Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean? You were dreaming." "I wish," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. She was trying to tell me something. Before I could finish, a loud crash echoed from outside, making us both jump. The window rattled, and the wind howled, throwing branches against the walls of our farmhouse. "What was that?" she gasped, eyes wide with fear. "I don't know." I stood up, adrenaline coursing through me. "Stay here." "No, I'm going with you." There was no argument in her voice, and I knew she wouldn't let me go alone. As she swung her legs over the edge of the bed, I grabbed the flashlight from the dresser. Together, we tiptoed to the door, my hand trembling against the handle. I opened it slowly, the hinges creaking in protest, and we stepped out into the cool night air. The moon hung low, illuminating the once familiar fields with an eerie glow. We ventured outside, the air crackling with unease. My thoughts raced. What if Abuela was warning me? What if I had sealed our fate by seeking the Charro's help? I didn't have the answers, but I felt the weight of something dark following us. Then, in the dim light, I saw it. A figure stood at the edge of the field, just beyond the reach of the moonlight. It was the Charro, tall and imposing, his hat casting a shadow over his face. He was watching us, a sinister smile tugging at his lips. "Looking for something, Francisco?" he called, his voice smooth but menacing. I clenched the flashlight tighter. "What do you want? I'm not interested in your deal anymore." His laughter rolled across the fields, filling the night with a chilling sound. "Ah, but you've already made your choice. You can't run from it." "What does that mean?" I shouted, but my voice trembled, betraying my fear. He stepped closer, breaking through the shadow. The moonlight caught his eyes, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. "Everything comes at a cost. You've chosen the path that leads to darkness." As I stood there, my heart pounding against the stillness, the shadows shifted again. Then everything went dark. Only this time, it felt as if the darkness had weight, closing in around us, as if the night itself was alive. I stumbled backward, the flashlight slipping from my grip. It hit the ground, flickering weakly, before plunging us into deeper darkness. "Luz!" I called out, my voice strained. "Francisco!" My wife's hand gripped my arm. I could hear the tremor in her voice. "What's happening?" The Charro's laughter faded into the shadows, but the weight of his presence remained. My instinct screamed at me to flee, yet I felt rooted to the spot, my breath hitching in my throat. "Let's go back inside," I whispered, though every fiber of my being urged me to run. I turned, my eyes scanning the field, searching for any hint of light. Suddenly, a snap echoed to our left, a branch breaking, as if something stirred in the underbrush. I could hardly breathe. "Did you hear that?" I asked, panic eroding my calm. "Yes, we need to move." She pulled at my arm, and I nodded, finally shaking off the paralysis. We turned to retreat, but as we stepped away, I heard it. A low, guttural growl resonating through the air, like a warning. I turned back toward the noise, heart racing. The Charro had vanished, but I felt something lurking just beyond the edges of the light. "Francisco, please," she urged, her voice urgent. I could tell she was terrified. I grabbed her hand tight, and we hurried towards the house. I pushed the door open, but the hinges squeaked as if protesting our entry. We slipped inside, slamming it behind us, and I placed my back against the door, panting. "What was that?" she gasped, wide-eyed. "I don't know." The room felt oppressively quiet, and I was still suffocated by dread. "We shouldn't have gone out there." "I can feel something. I can feel it watching us," she whispered, trembling. "Stay close." I gathered my courage and reached for the light switch. I flicked it, but nothing happened. The house remained dark, save for the light of the moon seeping through the windows. "I'll check the generator," I said, but my voice faltered. "Are you sure?" She hesitated. I could see the fear etched across her face. "Yes, we need light. We can't stay in the dark." I swallowed hard, forcing my legs to move. I felt like a child scared of the dark again, forced to confront a nightmare that had become all too real. I stepped into the living room, but a chill wrapped around me as I moved into the far corner. That's when I noticed it. A slip of paper, folded neatly on the coffee table, glinting in the sliver of moonlight. Cautiously, I approached, heart racing once more. I pulled open the note, the texture familiar yet unsettling. It was written in the same careful handwriting as Abuela's letters, a message from beyond. "Beware the price you didn't pay." My breath caught. Had the Charro written this? But before I could process it, a loud thump reverberated from above, a sound that sent a surge of adrenaline coursing through me. "What was that?" she called from the kitchen, panic rising in her voice. "I don't know. It came from upstairs," I replied, dread pooling in my stomach. Then, without warning, the lights flickered, then flashed on and off wildly, illuminating the room like a strobe. I caught a glimpse of a dark figure at the end of the hallway, just as the lights cut out again. "Someone's upstairs," I breathed. That was when I knew we were not alone. I felt my heart hammer in my chest, every instinct screaming for me to run. "Luz, stay here," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I needed to know if I was really seeing things. I stepped forward, feeling the weight of the air shift around me. The note slipped from my fingers, landing on the table with a soft thud. My mind raced. Who was upstairs? And why did I feel like I was walking toward a trap? Each step brought me closer to the darkened hall. The faint light from the moon barely reached inside, creating shadows that twisted and danced along the walls. I strained to hear any noise, but the silence felt deafening. "Please, don't go," Luz pleaded from the kitchen. "I have to see," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I reached the bottom of the stairs and touched the railing. It was ice cold. I hesitated, letting the fear claw at my insides, but I couldn't turn back, not now. As I ascended, each creak of the wood echoed in the stillness, louder than anything else. I paused on the landing, scanning the hallway. The door to the first bedroom was ajar, dark and inviting. I swallowed hard, then stepped forward. Then I saw it again, a quick shadow darting at the end of the hallway. My pulse quickened. I was almost sure it was there. "Hello?" I called out, my voice uncertain. The only response was the faint rustling, like an animal stirring in its nest. I turned toward the bedroom. Before I could think, my hand pushed the door open. Heart pounding, I stepped inside, my breath hitching in my throat. A flash of moonlight cut through a gap in the curtains, revealing a mess of scattered belongings. But that wasn't what caught my eye. On the floor, next to the bed, was an old photograph, its edges worn. I stooped down to pick it up. It was a picture of Abuela, younger, standing with a man in a Charro suit, smiling. My throat tightened. This man, he looked familiar. I had seen him before. "No," I mumbled, recognition dawning. He was the Charro. Suddenly, the room grew colder, and I shivered. I felt a presence behind me, and fear surged anew. I whipped around, but nothing was there. Just darkness, closing in like a trap. "Francisco!" Luz's voice broke through the tension, but it felt distant. "What's happening?" "I'm coming," I shouted, forcing myself to turn away from the photo, the sickening feeling in my stomach growing. I needed to get back to her, to protect her. But as I stepped toward the door, the shadows shifted. The figure was there, a silhouette taking form in the dim light, a presence that whispered of despair and promises long broken. I froze. "Who are you?" I choked out, but no answer came. Instead, the air thickened. "What do you want?" The figure leaned closer, and I felt an overwhelming chill. That's when I realized it was not just the Charro I had to fear. It was everything he represented. Before I could react, a hand shot out from the darkness, grabbing my arm. "We need to go!" Luz shouted, appearing beside me. I stumbled back, but before we could escape, the lights flickered back on. The figure was gone. The room returned to silence. But now I knew. We weren't just in danger. We were part of something we couldn't understand, and it was all about to get much worse. I pulled Luz with me as we stumbled back down the hallway, my heart racing with every desperate step. The memory of that figure haunted me, yet the need to escape pushed me forward. "We can't stay here," I gasped. "What was that?" she asked, looking back over her shoulder like she expected the shadows to follow us. "Was it real?" "I don't know," I admitted, panic gripping me. "But we have to find a way out." We reached the staircase, and I was about to descend when we heard a loud bang from the kitchen. I froze, my blood running cold. "Luz," I whispered, my voice strained. "Did you hear that?" Before she could answer, the sound came again, a series of quick knocks, like someone was banging on the door. Instinctively, I darted toward the kitchen. The air felt thicker here, charged with a tension I couldn't explain. The kitchen door swung open, revealing the darkened outside. "Stay close to me," I said, eyeing the expanse of the dark yard beyond the entrance. A sliver of moonlight illuminated the garden, but shadows loomed larger than ever. We stepped out into the cool night, my senses on high alert. The silence pressed in, suffocating. The house behind us loomed like a trap, waiting to engulf us again. "Where do we go?" Luz asked, her voice quivering. I took a deep breath, scanning the perimeter. "There's a path back toward the fields. We should try to get to the road." As we moved, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. Flashes of memory intruded, images of my abuela's stories about the Charro, the old tales of betrayal and curses that echoed through generations. I shivered. Was this all tied to my family? We passed the old barn, but before we could step onto the path, a low growl erupted from the shadows nearby. I spun around, eyes wide. "Luz!" I cried out, my instincts screaming for us to run. But before we could move, something stepped out from behind the barn. A tall figure cloaked in darkness, more shadow than man, emerged, its eyes gleaming like coals. "You shouldn't have come here," it said, voice smooth yet colder than ice. Who are you?" I stammered, backing away. "Someone who knows what your family has hidden," the figure replied, stepping closer. A chill shot through me as I realized it was akin to the silhouette I had seen upstairs. "You're meddling with powers you can't comprehend." Luz grabbed my arm. "We need to go," she urged, her grip tight with fear. "No," I said. "I need to know what you want." The figure laughed softly, but it was devoid of warmth. "What I want you to understand that your family's legacy is not what you think. The Charro is close, and gaming with them has its cost." I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. There was so much about my family I didn't know, so many questions begging for answers. "What do you mean?" I demanded, my voice barely a whisper. "Follow me, and you will see," it said, extending a hand. "But be warned, not all truths set you free." As it gestured toward the darkness behind it, unease flooded through me. Right then, I realized I wanted to know more, but I was terrified of what that knowledge might cost us both. Before I could decide, a distant howl broke the quiet, sending shivers down my spine. I had to choose. The path ahead led deeper into the unknown, and I had no idea what that figure or the Charro might reveal. What lay in the fields beyond was a mystery I was desperate to uncover, but it felt like walking right into danger. "Luz," I said hesitantly, "what should we do?" But just then, the ground beneath us shook, and everything I thought I knew began to unravel. Adrenaline coursing through my veins. I stumbled back as the ground quaked. It felt like the earth was alive, shifting beneath my feet. I quickly glanced at Luz. Her wide eyes mirrored my fear. "We can't stay here!" I shouted, panic making my voice sharper. The figure in the shadows seemed to smirk at our distress. "Run if you must, but the truth will find you," it said, pacing closer, almost savoring our terror. It felt like a game to it, taunting us. Without thinking, I grabbed Luz's hand and we bolted toward the fields. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears as I glanced back. The figure seemed to fade into the darkness, but its chilling words echoed in my mind. Your family's legacy. We plunged into the open space of the fields, running hard. The moon cast long shadows, and the tall grass whispered around us, adding to the haunting atmosphere. I didn't know where we were headed. All I wanted was to put distance between us and that sinister being. Why would it say those things about my family? I gasped, trying to catch my breath. Luz was silent beside me, her focus on our escape. I felt responsible for dragging her into this. I should have just left. It's not your fault, she panted, still clinging tightly to my arm. This is something bigger, isn't it? Those words hung heavy in the air. The stories of my abuela were just bedtime tales. They couldn't be real, could they? With every frantic step, doubt crept further into my mind. Suddenly, a rustle broke through the stillness. My heart dropped. We weren't alone. I turned to look, and that's when I saw it. Two glowing eyes in the distance, watching us from the edge of the field. "Luz!" I hissed, pushing her behind me, instinct taking over once again. "What is that?" she whispered, voice shaking as we both stared into the darkness. I don't know," I admitted, feeling the weight of panic gripping my chest. The eyes moved closer, revealing a large silhouette, its outline shifting and sculpting in the moonlight. The air crackled with tension, the dread thick enough to slice. "We need to keep moving," I urged, but my feet felt rooted to the ground, fear pinning me. Before we could take a step, a guttural growl reverberated through the night. It sounded hungry, primal. I looked back at Luz, her expression filled with terror. "Run!" We turned and sprinted again, the shadows around us coming alive as if they had grown fangs and claws. I didn't dare look back. I just focused on the thinning grass, the path being swallowed by the darkness behind us. Then a flash of movement startled me. A figure darted past us. A boy? He was breathing heavily, just like us, his eyes wild. "You're in danger! You have to—" But he didn't finish before he was yanked away into the deep shadows. A muffled scream pierced the night, and my chest tightened. "Did you see that?" I gasped, frozen as panic flooded my thoughts. What was happening? The boy had warned us, but now it was too late. Luz grabbed my arm and pulled me forward. "We can't stop. We have to get to the road, now." I followed, but my mind raced. Who was he? What danger lay ahead? The figure from the barn, the creature in the fields, and now this boy. All connected to a chain of mysteries that stretched back through generations. I had to find out, but first we needed to survive. Then the ground shook again. But this time it came with a roar, a sound that echoed the horror that surrounded us. It felt like the darkness was closing in, and just when I found my footing, everything went black. The darkness wrapped around me like a cold blanket. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear Luz's frantic breathing beside me. I reached out to her, my fingers trembling as I grasped her arm. "Luz, are you okay?" "Yeah, I think so," she whispered. Her voice was shaky, but it anchored me for a moment. I couldn't tell if we were on the ground or if we'd fallen. The roar from earlier still echoed in my mind, and my heart raced at the thought of what was lurking just beyond reach. Suddenly, a faint glow pierced the darkness. I blinked, trying to adjust my eyes. Shapes emerged around us, walls of grass and weeds swaying like sentinels. We were still in the field, but the moonlight felt different, almost distorted. It flickered erratically, casting eerie shadows that danced like wraiths. "Where's the road?" I mumbled, struggling to get my bearings. I could feel panic creeping back in, threatening to overwhelm me. "We have to find the—" Before I could finish, a figure erupted from the tall grass, startling us both. I instinctively pulled Luz behind me, but the shape stopped, hands raised. "Wait, it's me!" It was the boy we'd seen before. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. His face was pale, eyes wide with fright. "You need to listen. The thing in the shadows, it's looking for you." "What are you talking about?" I asked, glancing around, half expecting the darkness itself to come alive. "I'm Mateo. I was trying to warn you." He gestured behind him, half pleading and half panicked. "That thing, it wants to take you." "Why?" Luz asked, finally speaking up. Her voice was steady, but I could tell she was afraid. "Every generation, it needs a sacrifice," Mateo explained, words tumbling out in a rush. "Your family, the stories about the cursed land, they're more than just legend. They're a warning." "What do I have to do with it?" I choked out, my throat dry. I felt a surge of anger mix with fear. "I didn't ask for any of this." "It doesn't matter," he snapped, his features twisting in frustration. "But you have to choose. Either you face it, or—" "It comes for you. It's here." The air turned electric, and I could feel the hairs on my arms standing on end. A low growl resonated through the grass, deeper and more sinister than before. I swallowed hard, panic rising. "Run!" I yelled, taking Luz's hand and dragging her back into the field. The whispers in the grass felt like ghosts, urging us to flee. But Mateo trailed behind us, desperation etched on his face. "There's nowhere to hide. You have to confront it." I glanced back at him, confusion boiling in my mind. Confront what? Who are you really? That question hung in the air as we plunged deeper into the darkness. Just then, I caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of my eye. Something darted across the field, eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Then it came into view, a massive creature, more beast than man, with fur that shimmered in the moonlight. Its breath filled the air with a foul stench as it prowled closer, rage emanating from its very being. I turned to run again, but this time it was different. The air chilled. Something inside me shifted, a call to stand my ground. "We have to help each other," I shouted, but doubt clawed at my resolve. And just like that, I knew. The truth would come crashing in, one way or another. The night wasn't just swallowing us, it was revealing everything we were meant to face. As I looked back, I could see the creature's eyes fixed on me, unblinking, hungry. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was next. There was no way out. "Luz, here!" I shouted, determination flooding my veins. I wouldn't let it take us, not without a fight. The creature advanced, muscles rippling beneath its fur as it circled us. My heart raced. I tightened my grip on Luz's hand, hoping the contact would steady us both. "What do we do?" she gasped, fear evident in her wide eyes. Mateo stepped forward, defiance etched on his face. "We have to stand united. It feeds on fear. If we show weakness, it will strike." His voice trembled slightly, but he held his ground. "Great, that's helpful," I mumbled under my breath, feeling the pit in my stomach deepen. I could almost feel the weight of the creature's glare, pinning us in place. So how do we not be afraid? Mateo was already pulling something from his pocket, a small wooden talisman carved in the shape of a bird. "This belonged to your ancestors. It can protect you. We need to summon its power." My breath caught in my throat. "Summon what? How do we do that?" "By believing," he shouted, urgency in his voice. "Think of what you want most. Focus. It will listen." As the beast lunged closer, its growl reverberated, making the ground shake. I could feel the fear twisting in my chest, but I forced myself to close my eyes. I thought of home, of safety, of my family. I imagined a barrier of light wrapping around us, forcing the darkness away. Behind me, I could hear Luz whispering something under her breath, her voice quiet but steady. I opened my eyes to see Mateo holding the talisman high, its surface glinting in the dim moonlight. The creature hesitated, its massive head tilting as if sensing our resolve. I could almost believe it was afraid. My heart pounded harder. I glanced at Luz, and in that fleeting moment, I saw her courage reflecting back at me. "Together," I said, squeezing our hand tighter. "We can do this. We're not alone." The ground shifted beneath us, but we stood firm, eyes locked on the beast. Mateo began to chant something, words that rolled off his tongue like water over stones. I felt the energy in the air change, crackling with a fierce intensity. And just then, the creature roared, a sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. It lunged forward again, but this time it was different. The light from Mateo's talisman pulsed like a heartbeat, illuminating the darkness around us. I felt a wave of heat wash over me, raising the hairs on my neck. "Now!" I shouted, as if commanding the energy to surge forward. In that moment, I didn't know if it would work, but I stepped forward, shielding Luz with my body. The talisman glowed brighter, and I reached out as if it could physically pull the creature back. But it wasn't enough. The creature lunged, fangs bared. Then, everything went dark. The world faded, replaced by a vast emptiness. I tried to call out to Luz and Mateo, but no sound came. Panic rose within me. Where had they gone? My chest tightened as darkness enveloped me completely. That's when I felt it. An unnatural presence lurking in the void, cold and relentless, closing in around my mind. I couldn't let it take me. I wouldn't let it drown me in despair. Just then, I felt a tug, a thread connecting me back to the surface. My thoughts raced back to the talisman, to the chant, to the fight we were still in together. With renewed determination, I willed myself back. "We're still here," I murmured, clinging to the memory of our unity. But I knew this wasn't over. Something had changed. I sensed a new danger lurking just beyond reach, waiting to reveal itself. I awoke on the cool grass, the weight of shadows still heavy in the air. My heart hammered as I scanned my surroundings. The darkness wasn't gone. It coiled around the edges of the fields like a predator waiting for the right moment to pounce. "Luz?" I called, forcing myself to sit up, my pulse racing. Panic surged through me like fire, desperate to sweep away the remnants of that suffocating darkness. "Mateo?" There was silence, thick and oppressive, mingling with the distant rustle of grass in the wind. I turned, scanning the open fields. And there, not too far off, I saw them. Luz was huddled on the ground, her hands pressed against her face. Mateo stood just beyond her, his shoulders tense with uncertainty. I sprang to my feet, fueled by relief. "Are you both okay?" Luz looked up, her eyes glistening but brimming with confusion. I don't know, Francisco. What happened?" Mateo stepped forward, glancing back over his shoulder as if a specter might emerge from the shadows. I think we stopped it, at least for now." His gaze shifted to the edges of the field where the night seemed to writhe. "But it's not over," I said, dread crawling under my skin. I could feel the remnants of that primal energy, the sensation of being followed, lurking just out of sight. The Charro's words, "You can't run from it," echoed in my mind. Why did it feel like we had to confront something bigger? Luz's voice trembled slightly as she stood and brushed the dirt from her clothes. "What does any of this mean?" I swallowed hard, attempting to calm the storm inside me. I think the Charro was linked to us, to our family. This land might hold secrets, maybe a curse or debt from generations past. And I might have been the one it came looking for because of my choices. Mateo stepped closer. "There's a history here, Francisco, a legacy bound to darkness and shadows. The tales of the Charro aren't just folklore, they're warnings." The weight of his words pressed on my chest. I glanced again at Luz, her expression a mixture of fear and determination. "But we fought it together. Whatever it is, we can face it. Should we try to find answers? Luz nodded, but I could see the flicker of uncertainty in her gaze. I want to understand this, to know what we're dealing with. But I also don't want to draw it back to us. It felt so real. As I stared into the inky expanse of the field, I realized I was still trembling from the encounter. The talisman Matteo had held only moments before seemed to pulse in my mind, a beacon, a tool from my ancestors. Yet those connections felt more like chains now, binding me to something dreadful. "This may be more than we bargained for," I voiced finally. "But if we don't confront the past, we'll keep running forever, never truly free." "What's the first step?" Matteo asked, hesitating as he glimpsed back toward the shadowy depths of the land. A chill swept through me as I contemplated our next move. "We need to go back to the farmhouse, to Abuela's old things. If there's a curse, she must have known about it. Maybe she left something for us, a clue or a way to break it." The hesitation lingered, but eventually they both nodded. Slowly, we made our way back through the fields. Each step felt like a thread pulling us deeper into a web of history we hadn't yet grasped. As we neared the farmhouse, the wind rustled again, whispering names and half-forgotten promises. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, reminding me we weren't alone. Once inside, the house felt colder than before, a silence that echoed too loudly. We hurried into the small attic where my abuela had kept her belongings tucked away, the journals, the relics, the pieces of her life woven into ours. Matteo was already flipping through the yellowed pages. "It's all right here. She wrote about the Charro, about the land. There are mentions of ceremonies and offerings that were meant to protect the family." "What does it say?" Luz leaned closer, her breath hitching. "Can we reverse it?" Matteo hesitated, the words hanging heavy in the air. "It might not be that simple. The Charro may have deeper ties to your family than we realize." "Then we keep searching until we find the answers," I vowed, determination rushing back. "I can't let the past trap us. We have to expose it for what it is." But with every word of encouragement, a worry lingered at the edges of my mind. Had we escaped the darkness? Or was it merely waiting, lurking in the folds of the night, biding its time to strike again? I felt it, that fear prickling at the nape of my neck, a reminder of the Charro, the creature in the fields, and the price left unpaid. Whatever we found in those journals might lead us closer to understanding, yet the cost remained a question, floating just beyond reach, as dark and insistent as the shadows that clung fiercely to my family's legacy. The path ahead stretched uncertainly, a risky venture into the depths of knowledge mingled with secrets. We stood at the edge of the unknown. It could lead to answers, or down deeper into a rabbit hole that might never let us return. I moved to grab my grandmother's first journal, opening it to a faded page filled with her neat handwriting. Lines that had once brought me comfort now felt foreboding. And just like that, the weight of the world we were bound to carry settled onto my shoulders. I inhaled deeply as my heart tapped out a nervous rhythm. Let's begin. And just like that, we stepped forward into the shadows, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, but knowing that some doors, once opened, couldn't be closed again.